Hello and welcome back to Will's World Reviews and More. This is going to be a really different video, so anyone who's tuning in looking for Power Rangers or wrestling, I'm afraid this is nothing to do with either of those things. It is all about books, which is probably, my first love really. That was the first thing I really collected, the first thing that really got me obsessed. And so today we're going to be doing an author who, it's fair to say, I've had a bit of a love-hate relationship with. I tend to find with Stephen King that I go through phases where I will read one of his books and then we'll read another 3 or 4 and we're going to roll with them, and then I'll have a massive gap kind of between when I next pick up one of his books, and as I'm going to explain, that's kind of happened a lot. So I suppose you could kind of call this a collection video, but it's really more about my relationship with Stephen King. And also, as I'll explain, I'm actually on the hunt at the moment for some missing Stephen King books that I own. But it'll all become clear in a minute anyway. This is a bit of a strange video, but... So, yes. I started reading Stephen King, I think, when I was about 13, 14 maybe. My auntie is a massive Stephen King fan, always had Stephen King books around the house when I used to go visit, and I always wondered, what was the big deal, because she's a massive Stephen King fan, very from the very beginning, and had all like first editions and everything. And me and my cousin, we both read Goosebumps, and then as we got older, obviously wanted to progress to kind of more adult fiction. And Stephen King was the natural successor. So I think the first book I picked up by Stephen King was Misery. Now I do own the actual copy that I have, that I read, that I picked up from the second-hand market. But like a lot of the other ones, they're actually away, packed in storage at my old house where my parents live. So I've got a full list of books that I have read by Stephen King that I actually haven't got here to show you, but I have got some to show you. So what I'll do is we'll start with the ones that I have got, and then I can talk through the rest. So, the best one to probably start off with is Different Seasons by Stephen King, obviously. This is quite an old copy, as you can see. I've got like a bookmark in there from Apt Pupil. And I think this is probably one of the very first ones I bought, and it is the same copy, and it's one I managed to find yesterday along with some others in the cupboard that I keep most of my books. To say I've had this for so many years, I don't think I've actually read any of it. Like I said, I've started at Pupil, and there's also a bookmark in here for Shawshank Redemption. I think I may have read Shawshank before, and I've started to reread it. But, it's obviously a collection of 4 books, and is it 4? Maybe it's more than 4. Let's have a look. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, just 4. But still, like I say, so I've only read Shawshank, and obviously that's because I saw the film. So, I'd recommend it for that alone if you're going to buy a Stephen King book. The next one, probably best to show, is on writing. Now, I don't know whether most of you are aware, but I am also a writer, so this was really helpful for me because it kind of went through a lot of helpful things. I read this when I was at university. So quite a few years after I purchased that, but I bought this one specifically because I liked Stephen King, and also because I was a writer. I am a writer, and a budding writer, whatever, and wanted to learn a bit more about it. So again, if you like Stephen King, then I would pick this up. But even if you're just a writer and you're not a massive fan of Stephen King, it is a really good book to kind of buy. The next one I would probably show you is Under the Dome. Now, I haven't read this one. I picked this up a couple of years after it was released. Did I really get that far? No, I didn't. They're just pictures. I'm going to say, I don't think I actually ever started it, so, like, it is such a massive book. But, this is the one I'm going to read after the ones that I'm reading at the moment, which I'll get to. So this is one that I'll be hopefully starting soon. It's a massive book, but I'm interested to see what it's like. Heard good things. Bag of Bones. This was actually my mum's, and it is a first edition. She bought this when it first came out in 1998. Nice picture of Stephen King there. So I found this when I was going through her books, and yeah, not too sure, not heard too much about it, but it's nice to have a hardback copy, a first edition, that my mum bought when it was actually in the shelf on the shelves in the shops. So yeah, it's nice. And then we've got the Bachman books. And this is very special to me because not only is it kind of like it has Rage in it, which obviously is now out of publication. This was actually a book I was reading. It's a bit of a sad story, I suppose, but when my granddad was in hospital and sadly he passed away, I was reading this book, and it actually belonged to the hospital. And then when he passed away, sadly, and they gathered his things up, they thought that this was part of his things. So to me, it's quite a special book, and it's nice to have Rage in there as well, you know, because obviously if you buy the collection now, it only has these three, but to actually have Rage in there is quite nice. So I'm quite pleased with that. So that's the state of the ones that I actually have now on hand, but there is a lot. I mean, I've got some on my Kindle, which are the ones I'm reading at the moment. I'm reading The Shining, which I have read before, and I think I did have in a hard copy, but in one of these copies, but I think it may have been my auntie's that I borrowed. And I've also got Doctor Sleep to read, a sequel to The Shining, which is why I'm rereading The Shining. So they're two on my Kindle, so you can add them to my collection. But I have got a list here of the ones that I do own, but don't actually have here to show you. So, Carrie, read that one. Probably not long after I bought Different Seasons and read Misery, but still a good book. Dark Tower 1, The Gunslinger, I owned that as well. Quite enjoyed that. I always wanted to read the rest, but never got round to it. Pet Sematary, really liked that one. We'll save it because I want to talk about that. Misery, you know, so again, I've got that in a copy. Gerald's Game and The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon, I read those about the same time. I think Gerald's Game might have been a copy from the library, so I might not actually own that one, but The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon I definitely owned. And then Cell and Duma Key were read about the same time. Really loved Duma Key. That's what got me back into Stephen King. I picked that up when I was at uni. I needed something to read, and that was the one that kind of really got me back into Stephen King and made me read On Writing, and then Cell, and then Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon and Gerald's Game. So you could totally say that these ones here were the ones that kind of in my first, along with Different Seasons, were my first introduction to Stephen King. It in particular was one that I read and really loved, you know, because it was such a big book. It took up a lot of my life and was a massive part of my life. So that, you know, I suppose it was a massive thing for me. So that's that. And then the ones that I can't find that I haven't read are The Green Mile, which I had around the same time as I bought Different Seasons, and Lisey's Story. Now, for ages I was thinking I'd read Lisey's Story, but I actually didn't, and I can't find that. So I'm looking, hopefully, to find these maybe tomorrow. As I go back into the cupboard. It is a bit of a treacherous zone at the moment with all them books, and I'm trying to really sort through them because I've got hundreds of books to really find all these Stephen King books. So if I do find any more, I'll show you. But for now, that is my kind of Stephen